Hey everyone, and welcome. We all know about AIs like ChatGPT, right? But what if you could teach one of those AIs to be an expert on your stuff? All your company reports, your research, your private notes? Well, there's a really powerful way to do exactly that, and today we're going to pull back the curtain and demystify. So let's start with a problem that's super real for a lot of people. Picture this. Your company has, 500 gigabytes of documents. That's everything. Employee handbooks, old meeting notes, product specs, you name it. How in the world do you get an AI to tap into all of that knowledge and give you instant, accurate answers?
Now, when you're facing a mountain of data that big, a couple of ideas probably pop into your head right away. But as you're about to see, the most obvious paths, well, they don't really work.
Okay, so your first thought might be, let's just do a brute force search. But think about it. Making the AI read 500 gigs of data every single time you ask a question? Way too slow. So what about the other idea? Let's just pre-summarize everything. The problem there is you lose all the crucial details, and the AI's answers end up being vague, maybe even wrong. We need something that's both fast and precise.
And this is where this amazing technique called RAG comes into play. It stands for Retrieval-Augmented Generation, and it is just an incredibly elegant solution that gives us the best of both worlds, speed and accuracy. To really get how it works its magic, we need to quickly cover the two big ideas that make it all possible.
First up, we've got something called a word embedding. At its core, it's pretty simple. Computers don't get words, but they're amazing with numbers. So embedding is this really cool process of translating the meaning and the context of our language into a long list of numbers. We call that list a vector.
So now you've got all these numbers that represent meaning. Where do you put them? That's where a vector database comes in. Now, this isn't your normal database that just looks for keywords. Oh no, this thing searches for related concepts. It's less like a filing cabinet and a whole lot more like a library of ideas. It lets us find things that are conceptually similar, even if they don't use the exact same words.
And when you put those two powerful ideas together, you get RAG. The name pretty much tells you the whole story. It retrieves the important info from that vector database. It augments the AI's prompt with that info, and then it lets the AI generate an answer that is perfectly in context. Pretty cool, right?
Okay, so we know the ingredients, but how does it all come together in the real world when you actually ask a question? It turns out it's a surprisingly simple and elegant three-step dance.
So it all kicks off with retrieval. Your question gets turned into one of those numerical vectors, and the system zips through the database to find the chunks of your documents that have the closest meaning. Then, and this is the key step, comes augmentation. The system takes those relevant chunks it just found and literally stuffs them right into the prompt it's about to send to the AI. And finally, you get generation. The AI doesn't just see your question, it sees your question plus all that juicy relevant context, letting it create an answer that's actually grounded in your private data. The best way to think about it is like this. Instead of relying on its old, static training data from who knows when, the AI gets a just-in-time briefing for every single question you ask. It's like whispering the correct answer in its ear right before the test. It gets the most relevant facts on the fly without you having to spend a ton of time and money retraining the entire model.
So that's the theory. It sounds great, right? But what does it actually look like to build one of these things? Let's take a quick peek behind the curtain at the main stages involved. First things first, you gotta do something called chunking. You can't just feed a giant 200-page PDF into the system. You have to break it down into smaller, bite-sized pieces. This is super important for keeping the context around each idea and making sure that search process is fast and, most importantly, relevant. All right, next up, you take every single one of those chunks you just made and you run it through what's called an embedding model. This is that magic step we talked about earlier. This is where you translate all of your documents into that numerical, meaning-based language that the vector database can actually understand. So once your documents are converted into these vectors, it's time for what we call ingestion. You load them up into a vector database, something like ChromaDB. Think of this as feeding the AI's new, specialized brain. You're building its memory and making all of that knowledge instantly accessible. And finally, you build the interface that connects a real person to this new brain you've built. This is the app, or the search bar, that takes someone's question, turns it into an embedding, and then does that super fast semantic search to pull out the perfect answer from your knowledge base.
Let's make this a little more concrete. In a real project, for your chunking strategy, you might say, okay, let's make each chunk 500 characters long with 100 character overlap, just to make sure you don't lose any context between the chunks. For the embedding model, you might pick something light and fast like all mini-LM, and then all of that gets stored in a popular vector storage tool like ChromaDB, all set up and ready for a semantic search. This is a really common, really powerful way to set things up.
Okay, so that's the what and the how. But let's talk about the most important part, the why. Why should you care? Why go through the trouble of building a RAG system? Well, the benefits are, frankly, a total game changer.
I mean, the power you get from this is just immense. First, the answers are grounded in your data, not some random stuff from the internet. The information is always up to date, unlike a static AI model. You also slash the number of AI hallucinations, when it just makes stuff up, because you're literally handing it the facts. And, this is a big one, you get to avoid the huge cost and complexity of fine-tuning a massive model. You've basically made your entire knowledge base searchable by meaning.
At the end of the day, RAG completely transforms your private data from this static, dusty archive into a dynamic, intelligent resource you can talk to. It proves that the answers you're looking for, they're probably already there, just sitting in your documents. So the only real question left is, what are you going to ask?